Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Damme and you are watching Flick Connection, the show that helps you get more out of movies. And today I want to tell you about 20, believe it or not, there are 20 really good movies on Hulu right now. So what you're going to get are 20 1-minute-ish reviews starting all the way back at number 20 with Terminal. Now this is my weakest recommendation, but I still really did like this movie. This is actually starring Margot Robbie. I'm pretty sure it's Robbie in this like futuristic, neon lit assassin, kind of a Sin City kind of a vibe. It's not as good as Sin City. It looks a little like John Wick. It's not nearly as good as John Wick, but if you like those things, there's enough in this movie to enjoy. There's not a lot of action in it. It's really kind of a chatty movie. There's a lot of dialogue, but it's fun and funky. If you just want to watch something new and different that's got kind of that funky vibe that you're seeing from the clips I'm showing, this would be a safe bet, but again, it's all the way back at the list. For me, this one was a little bit of a disappointment because I felt like there was so much more potential with this one that was kind of missed. For one that I know some people didn't like, I'm not sure why, I enjoyed it out of this one, is Gamer. I really like this one. It stars Gerard Butler. He plays a real person who I believe is like incarcerated. It's been a while since I've seen it, but he is able to be operated by a gamer, by a teenager in their bedroom, and he goes to war with other prisoners. It is pretty badass. Like, the movie's shot really gritty. There's a lot of action. This is a hard R, and it's fun. It doesn't forget to be fun. It gets a little bit, maybe a little bit too weird for me, which actually says a lot because I really do like my weird movies, but it is fun. Like, it's to me, whereas Terminal was disappointing because there was a missed opportunity, to me, this one's surprisingly good for kind of how silly a lot of it is. The Next 3 Days I just mentioned as being one of the better movies currently on Amazon Prime. You can watch that video, there's a link in the description, but very briefly, since some of you watch all the videos, it stars Russell Crowe and Elizabeth Banks. She's his wife, she goes to prison, and he spends the majority of the movie trying to break her out. So the thing I really liked about this one is instead of breaking out of prison, he's breaking in and breaking someone out, and he's just a family man. Like, he's not a hardened criminal. He has to learn all of this stuff, and it's kind of technical at times. I enjoyed that aspect of it a lot. I think they sold this movie improperly when it came out, and so it didn't get reviewed very well, but with the right set of expectations, I think you can really enjoy this one. Now, for one with a little bit of a similar vibe to The Next 3 Days, kind of an escape type of a thing that's very old. It's one of Johnny Depp's early movies before he was like really a household name, and that's Nick of Time. Christopher Walken's also in this one. This is one that kind of takes place all in one day, all in one building. It's got a little bit of a Die Hard element. Not as much action, even though there is action in this one. But this is more of a suspense, thriller, a lot of sticky situations Johnny Depp's trying to get his way out of, and it's fairly popular. Like, it was a smaller movie, but it's got a little bit of a following. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. I would wager that most of you liked it, so if you haven't seen it, this would be a really great pick off of the list. Now, I kind of got a great double feature here with Michael Douglas, and that's Fatal Attraction and Black Rain. So let's talk about Fatal Attraction first. This movie was huge when it came out, to the point I really don't need to talk about it much, except I do know I have some younger viewers that maybe haven't seen it. This is like the epitome of the erotic thrillers. Michael Douglas is cheating on his wife with a woman, and she turns out to be a crazy person, a real crazy person. And so what you get with this is, again, like this crazy thriller where some really wild stuff happens. I'm not going to spoil anything, but this one actually topped my list and Catherine Corcoran's list of the like sexiest thrillers of all time. We did that on the podcast. I'll put a link to that particular episode in the description. But Black Rain is another really great Michael Douglas thriller that's actually directed by, it is Ridley Scott. This one's Ridley Scott. I get confused as to whether or not this one's Michael Mann or Ridley Scott. This is Ridley Scott, and he goes to Japan, and he's a detective, and there's a lot of fish out of water cultural stuff dealing with Japan, but there's some motorcycle racing, and it's a good detective movie. It's got like this really interesting noir vibe that definitely like has Blade Runner influences. If you're a fan of Blade Runner, you'll see hints of Blade Runner in Black Rain. If you're a fan of Black Rain, let me know in the comments. All right, getting off of the 90s and 80s into something that just came out this past year, Three Identical Strangers is a wild documentary about three triplets. And this is spoilers, but it's given to you in the trailer, so bear with me. But it's about three triplets who were separated at birth that find each other when they're like 20 years old. And it was a huge story back in, I want to say, the early 80s when it first happened. And these guys have a pretty incredible story. And the documentary is really, really well done. There's some reenactment stuff that really sort of keeps it moving. Like the first 10, 15 minutes of this movie are so exciting. I mean, for a documentary, it's one of the most exciting times I've had watching a movie in the past year, and it's a documentary. Like, I'm talking about all movies, and I just saw John Wick 3 last week, and this still, I'm telling you, the first 10 minutes, me and my wife both were so excited, so I recommend this one. It's a really, really fantastic documentary. For another one that came out just last year, The Sisters Brothers is a Western starring Joaquin Phoenix and John C. Reilly, who are two of my favorite actors working today. They're so interesting to watch. If anything, I think they're a little bit underutilized here in this movie, but I still really did enjoy it. What I will say, I'm not going to give anything away. It's a Western. If you like Westerns, definitely watch this one. Both of their performances are great. This one's kind of funky and interesting. I was really into it in the first 30 minutes to an hour, so the first half, and I gradually sort of lost interest with it. So I still do recommend it because I really enjoyed that first half. And the second half didn't ruin it or anything. It didn't, and I'm not even talking about the conclusion. I'm just talking about sort of the second half just sort of didn't finish strong for me. I'm not really sure why. I did like it enough. Obviously, I put it fairly high on the list, but I also liked it enough to maybe watch it again, and maybe I'll enjoy that second half more in a second viewing. Destroyer is one I waited for a year to see. It's currently on Hulu, which is crazy to me, but it stars Nicole Kidman. Yes, you're looking at Nicole Kidman's face right now, and it's a really good, gritty cop movie. Like undercover, gritty cop movie with freaking Nicole Kidman. So one of the main reasons, even though I'm a big fan of Nicole Kidman, one of the main reasons I really wanted to see this one so bad is because I was a big fan of The Invitation, which has been on Netflix for the past couple of years. I've recommended it here on this channel a bunch of times. Same director. I think she's an incredible director. I will say, I think The Invitation is her stronger work. In terms of filmmaking, not that this one's bad. Destroyer is not a bad movie at all. It's a good movie. It's not a great movie. I would have loved to have ranked this one higher, but I think it went a little over long with some scenes, and it sort of like lost me in some places. But I really enjoy this genre to begin with, and I really enjoyed the movie as well. And then the last one on the first half of this list, I got a whole nother 10 after this coming up, so stay tuned to this video. I'm not going anywhere, but 12 Monkeys is currently on the platform. If you've never seen it, it's an amazing sci-fi movie directed by Terry Gilliam, who did all the Monty Python movies and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. He's an amazing director, but it stars Bruce Willis and wonky-eyed Brad Pitt. I really like this one a lot. It's got time travel elements that are really, really well done. If you haven't seen it, it needs to be one of the first ones you watch off of this list before it's gone. But I would imagine this is probably the one most people have seen, so I'm going to move on to the rest of the list. Before I do that, if you like this type of content, definitely click that subscribe button and be sure to click the little bell icon so you get notified when I put out new videos just like this one. Okay, so we're in the top 10. Now, the top 10 actually consist of some pretty well-worn movies that I know a lot of people have seen and love, mixed in with some newer movies that are some hidden gems. So we're actually going to start this section off with Shutter Island. This one I really, really like. Now, I'm biased because I'm a big fan of Martin Scorsese. But this movie is so smart. Like, the first time I saw it in the theater, I really enjoyed it because, again, I love Scorsese. I like DiCaprio. I liked the whole vibe of this one. It was a good trip to the movies. However, after multiple viewings, when you know the twist to this movie, it is a much more interesting watch. That's rarely the case. The twist usually ruins future watches, which is okay. Good twists do that. This one, it's not that the twist is so perfect. The movie is so perfectly crafted in the performances and the nuances throughout that once you know the secret, and hopefully a lot of you watching already know it, it's well worth revisiting. Be sure to know what the secret is in fairly decent detail, because there's so many clues that you would never even pick up on otherwise. Little glances, little looks. It's really, really brilliant. The Green Mile, I feel like I don't even need to talk about this one. Well, it's not one of my favorite movies of all time. It's so watchable. Like, I can watch this one anytime it's on. I can catch it in the middle. Shawshank was the same way. I think that's why those movies are so popular, is they just appeal to everybody. I love all the characters in this one. I feel like it's... I said something about a movie recently that it was like literature, and because this one is written by Stephen King, it feels like a book. If by some miracle you've never seen The Green Mile, I would make it the first one you watch off of this list if you have access to Hulu. Primal Fear, starring Richard Gere, did not mean to make that rhyme, but Edward Norton is also in it. Really breakout role for him, and honestly, I mean, I'm a fan of his, but I think maybe like one of his strongest performances. This one's really, really fantastic. Richard Gere is great in it too, but a really great courtroom drama. There's an investigation element, but you're basically following a high-powered lawyer, Richard Gere, who's trying to defend a murder suspect, Edward Norton, and I'm not going to say anything else, but there's some twists and turns in this one that really kind of mangle this case up, and it really turns into this great courtroom drama. Like, if you're a fan of Law and Order, if you even just like vegging out and watching old Law and Order episodes, there's plenty to love in Primal Fear, but this is one of the more known movies, probably second to The Green Mile on this list. Forget, my number one pick is easily the most watched movie on this list, but I'm going to go ahead and move on. For a Few Dollars More is the second movie in the Dollars trilogy. Now, yes, I said trilogy. Why would I want to watch the second one in a trilogy? Not because it's the best. The third is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. That one's the best. However, For a Few Dollars More doesn't get a lot of recognition, but it is a very, very good movie, and it's not a true trilogy. You do not need to watch them in order. It's just three movies with similar characters that have a lot of similar themes. They're not tied together other than the fact that they're all directed by Sergio Leone. They all star Clint Eastwood and sort of the man with no name type of character. But this one's got a great bank heist in it. I think the characters are better developed than they were in A Fistful of Dollars. I think it's almost a rehashing of A Fistful of Dollars, which is the first one, in a much better way. So I actually really loved watching those two and just observing how Sergio Leone improved upon the first with this second. It really, for a movie geek, it's really incredible to sort of watch those two back to back. Okay, I promised some more recent hidden gems. Sorry to Bother You was one of the cooler, funkier movies that came out in 2018. You follow a telemarketer who... Here's a clip.
You want to make some money here? Use your white voice.
My white voice.
Hey, Mr. Kramer, this is Langston from Regal View.
A lot of people compared this one to like this generation's Do the Right Thing. Handles themes a little differently, but I enjoyed the way the movie was put together so much, and it was such a fun experience and sort of a different experience that nothing about the movie bothered me. And just... I gotta say, this one is not for everybody. This one's got some really weird stuff involving horses. I just have to put that out there because I don't want anybody watching this movie and then coming back and complaining later. But I really like this one. This one was a big surprise for me. Eastern Promises is currently on Hulu, and it is leaving at the very end of June. So be sure to watch this one. This is an incredible gangster movie, a Russian mob movie starring Viggo Mortensen. Really gritty stuff, some fight scenes, amazing story, really well directed by David Cronenberg. Cronenberg was really known for this weird body horror stuff in the 80s with movies like VHS, Naked Lunch, and just weird. I mean, those movies are cool, but just like skin-crawling weird stuff. And he still has like some nasty stuff in his latter movies like Eastern Promises, but he really sort of, I think, came into his own as a director and the way he crafts a story, and Eastern Promises is a fantastic example of that. If you're anywhere interested in sort of this mob movie genre at all, this is a great pick off of this list. Okay, so I actually forgot to record this particular movie for this list. I've already changed my lights and everything for the next video I'm recording, but Blown Away was supposed to be included in this Hulu video, and it's a really great movie. It's also going to be leaving at the end of June, so be sure to watch it. But this one stars Tommy Lee Jones as this terrorist bomber, and Jeff Bridges as the guy that's trying to stop him. Great soundtrack to this one, some U2 hits on this one. Really interesting filmmaking, straightforward at times and then kind of cool at other times. I enjoyed this one. It's a great thriller that has like a little bit of an audience, but it like didn't run on TV a lot. I know a lot of people still have missed this one. I mean, it's like 30 years old. If you never saw it, this one's really, really fantastic. Annihilation, I think, is one of the best movies to have come out in 2018. It is bonkers. Now, I know a lot of people didn't get it or felt like it was maybe just a bunch of BS, and I'll be honest, when I was watching it in the theater, I had that same thought. I'm watching this story unfold, and I'm just like, it's hurting my brain, and I'm thinking, is this nonsense, or is there something deeper happening here? And upon a second viewing and really digging into a lot of the symbolism in it, this is a very, very intelligent movie. It's really amazing how well this is pieced together. It is a puzzle that's intended to be solved. If you want to watch something a couple of times and sort of play with it and start to figure out what it really means, this is a movie you can do that with. Now, The Shining is on Hulu. It's my favorite horror movie of all time. I've got a couple. The Thing would be another one. John Carpenter's The Thing. But The Shining is an interesting one because Stephen King himself doesn't really like the movie. And I agree, it's not a good representation of his book. But what Stanley Kubrick did with it was really incredible. There's dread throughout this entire movie. There's a lot of subliminal stuff that once you know it's there, it's incredible. Like there's a scene where the family's watching TV and the TV's in front of a big window and there's just, you don't realize it when you first watch it, there's no cord to this TV. It's an old school cabinet TV, there's no cord. And it's little things, hallways that lead to nowhere that if you pay attention, that literally the geometry of the building doesn't make sense. And Kubrick was a genius at that, and this movie is just sort of a maze of a horror movie, and I love it for that and can just rewatch it almost every year as a result. And then you're probably wondering, what's going to be number one? After all that, after The Shining, what is number one? What is better than all of those movies on Hulu right now? The Dark Knight is currently on Hulu. I don't know why. These movies tend to jump around. It was on Netflix recently. Batman Begins is also on the platform. I included it on the list and then thought it was a cop-out to sort of like rank it. I had it somewhere around like 7 or 8. But The Dark Knight is just a personal favorite of mine. I don't know that I've ever been quite so excited sitting in a movie seat as the opening credits or as the logo came on. It was just such an exciting moment for me, and I think everything worked with this movie, except for the fact that it's maybe a little overlong, but I enjoy the look of this one. Heath Ledger's performance is just legendary. Obviously, I don't need to go on about it. It's one of my favorite movies, and certainly my favorite superhero movie of all time. Let me know in the comments below what movies from this list you look forward to watching on Hulu. So there are other good movies on Hulu. And if this video gets enough views and enough likes, I'm arbitrarily got a number in my head, I'm going to do another binge watch. If you're a fan of the channel, you probably saw my Netflix binge watch where I sat and I ended up being 12 horror movies in a row. I've got 10 movies on Hulu, including a movie called Border, Assassination Nation, The Clove Hitch Killer, Mom and Dad with Nicolas Cage. I've got 10, and I plan on watching them all in a row, reviewing them, letting you know which ones are good, which ones are not. If you want to see that, light up the likes and comments below. Share this video, make sure it gets views, but I will keep making videos like this one as long as you keep watching them. Thanks for checking this one out, and you will see me on the next one. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so a number of ways. You can become a Patreon supporter like one of these fine people. You can follow the Amazon link. You can do your Amazon shopping. After following that link, it'll get a little kickback to the show. Just a good way to support the show without actually doing anything. And then also, there's a bunch of shirts in the Teespring store. I don't always link to that because YouTube doesn't really like it, but I will link to it in this video. And I design all these shirts by myself. I like them. It's the type of stuff I like to wear. I don't know what else to make. So check that out. It's a good way to support the show and get something in return. You'll get a free shirt if you become a Patreon supporter, depending on which tier you pick. But there's some fun stuff going on over on Patreon, so be sure to check that out just to see if it's something you're interested in. And then look for the next Hulu list. I'd really want to do that binge watch. So make sure you do that. And then if you're new and you're still happen to be watching after I've signed off, I do videos like this on Netflix, Amazon Prime. I've got one coming up that's going to be horror movies, hidden gems on every single platform. So appreciate the views, and I got to get out of here.